All right. We are live. We are live.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, Green. And good morning, everyone who is going to watch us live and will watch us recorded. You all are most welcome to Moreness-Culture. How are you, Syl?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm well and eager and ready to get going and excited. Everything is good. Everything is good.
Great, great. Okay. So while Syl is sharing, because we are now available. Of course, we are trying to adjust with the TikTok also, but TikTok is a new platform, and then and have some certain limitations, so we are adjusting there. But definitely, we are going to be live there and on Instagram, and will be available on Substack and YouTube, and of course on Facebook. And if anyone is keen and interested, you're most welcome to join us on Zoom. What we are doing here, we are actually doing the capital R reading. Capital R reading, I know that, okay, it's not very uncommon thing. It's not a new or unique thing. Other people have different understanding about this, but from the way of impeccability, the capital R reading process is very sophisticated. It's very comprehensive. It is not only just reading carefully, of course, paying attention, very focused attention, but also it is connecting with the intent and connecting with the bigger picture, the abstract value of, as well as local. So this is the base of capital R reading process from Way of Impeccability, but it doesn't end here. After that, the implication and the application, and third and the final is value. What we get out of it. So this is a long process. It's not going to just, okay, yes, I read that fun story, it was wonderful for that, for a moment of like, okay, yes, for a few hours or few days I was having good stimulation of my thoughts and all that, and it's okay, and now I'm able to give reference in my fancy talks. No, Way of Impeccability capital R reading process is much more than that. You might not be able to exactly quoting the exact word to word. If you like to, of course you can, but this is not the main focus, because you are going to make it your own. So you might not have exact words from the author, but you will have the crux, you will have the soul of that, you will have the real value of that share, and then you will be able to apply. And then, of course, the real value comes. So this is the key.
Exactly.
Yes?
Yeah, I was just going to say the key is you end up with value. Does it matter if it's the exact precise value that whoever you got it from or wherever it came from, the universe, the world, whatever, some person, doesn't matter. Does it matter if it's the exact same value as what was intended? No. What matters is you get value.
Exactly. Exactly.
You have
So sometimes, yes, people who do the capital R reading, the exact capital R reading from Way of Impeccability concept, they might not have exact words to quote and give reference to, oh, I heard someone, oh, yes, I know that, okay, that person was saying that. Because in the process, they get so consumed to extract value in the process of extracting value, and they deliberately make it their own by actually paying attention and giving due respect. And it doesn't matter that, okay, who said that? No, this is the ultimate gesture of respect, and of course showing appreciation, that how much valuable it was, that I'm so consumed by that. Now I make it my own and I'm applying it in my life and I'm getting value out of it. This is the real appreciation. And this is the real soul of capital R reading process from the Way of Impeccability. This is what we are busy nowadays. It's a huge project. We are busy doing capital R reading of Carlos' books about Don Juan. And it's, of course, now we are on the second book. but there is something more special about this, because we are doing this capital R reading with a very specific intent to connect with Don Juan. Not only just know about his sharing at the time, but to connect with Don Juan. This sentence has so many implications, because when we say that we want to connect with Don Juan, which means that we are going to not only just by, of course, learning his mediums, about his mediums and all that, but actually meeting him, which also means that for us, Don Juan is there via his sharing, maybe his soul, maybe his energy, but he is there. And we want to connect him. We want to connect with that intent of capital S sharing, which Don Juan was doing at that time, practicing at that time with Carlos. This is a very special project for us. And this is what we are doing. What we are busy with. And Syl, in this whole process, he is facilitating us not only just by elucidating what Don Juan was sharing, but also he adds a lot to that, because he has, of course, some cultural understanding and some, of course, like the historical understanding, in the sense that, okay, he's aware of those movements and how it the whole understanding influenced the world overall. So he has that. And after that, he's continuously observing how everything has changed after Don Juan's sharing, after Carlos' works. So we are getting a lot, not more just the reading. It is not, if you are reading by yourself, you can maximize it, like really multiply it 100 times, what you will get from it.
Yes. And also, what we are doing is very important here. We are also reading Don Juan through the lens and in the context of Moreness-Culture, which is a big deal, right? Because the entire reading, not just Don Juan, but Carlos, right? Carlos as a person also. We are reading this in the context of Moreness-Culture, which is a very big deal. Yes, because when we read and we are bringing Moreness-Culture, we are sharing what Moreness-Culture is and what it's all about, how it connects. Right? This is a big deal. It's a very big deal. Right, I'm just pulling up the file to read. We'll screen share in a moment. The file is a little slow in coming up. That's all. Let me screen share in the meantime. But while that's going on, let me say hello to all the people on TikTok. We got 260 JM78. He is risen. Chloe Tart, Eamon Berry, Ryan 94887, TMT Marketing, B Rich XOXO, and me. Me joined. Hello, me. Brilliant. I love that you all are here. I love it. Most wonderful. So welcome to Moreness-Culture. That's the key point here, right? That we are doing something. We're doing this capital R reading of Don Juan, not for the purpose specifically, necessarily only of hearing Don Juan. No, yes, we're going to be doing that. But in addition, we are going to be hearing it in the context of Moreness-Culture. And we are going to be hearing Carlos in the context of Moreness-Culture also. And we're going to bring all of Moreness-Culture to bear on this reading. Yes? So there's Chris X5 has joined as well. So I love this. And user number, long number. I'm not going to read your whole long number, user. Sorry. All right, I just have to find where we were. My file reset. So here we go. Yeah, he's talking about this is where we ended last time. Don't worry, he said reassuringly. That's Don Juan now. Tricks with fear won't work on you anymore. Won't work on Carlos anymore. Please. Yeah, you're no longer afraid. But if it is needed, you can be tricked wherever you are. Carlos won't be too happy to hear that, I don't think.
Still screen share, please.
Yes, I am. It's just a bit slow. There we go. Right. You see it now?
It is uploading. My network is a bit.
Okay. Okay. Oh, we did this. We read this series in the market. We read all this, right, Beena? Where the three people, right? He gets the plant from Don Vicente, right? And as a gift, this power gift. Yeah. But he doesn't know it's a power gift. He just thinks it's a gift and he's got to plant it. I mean, he sort of has an idea, but not entirely. And while he's doing this, he goes back to his car to get more water because he breaks the water bottle. And these three people are there, two men and a woman, just in the middle of nowhere, right? And he describes it in great detail. And this is the end of it. I really had nothing to give them. They stood there looking at me for a moment, and then they began to walk away. I got into my car and tried to start the motor. It was very intense, and the motor seemed to be flooded. The younger man stopped when he heard the starter grinding and came back and stood behind my car, ready to push it. I felt a tremendous apprehension. I was actually panting desperately. The motor finally ignited, and I zoomed away. And right, so then he talks about Don Juan. He was retelling the story to Don Juan, right? It's damned important, he said. Vicente is a first-rate sorcerer, right? And then he goes on about this a bit. But he said, why did you want to meet with him? And he said, you must. And he said, no, you must go when you've learned how to perceive, right? Anyway, he talks about how Vicente talked about Don Juan and all that. and about Carlos's baffling good luck, right? And I think this is where we are here. You're a damn fool, he said, and looked stern for a moment. He won't cause you any harm by himself, but knowledge is power. And once a man embarks on the road of knowledge, he's no longer liable for what may happen to those who come into contact with him. Very important and powerful understanding, because it's very nuanced. It doesn't mean that we get to be irresponsible and we can just do and we don't care about what happens. We are acting impeccably, because when you're on the road to knowledge like that, the essential understanding is that you are, of course, also applying and living way of impeccability, and you're living in attunement, right? So it's a statement that has a lot of implication to it and connection, right? And when you are acting impeccably and you're acting in attunement, whatever happens is going to happen. You've done your best. You've been impeccable, and that's why he says you're not liable. Yes, he didn't say not responsible, but liable, which is slightly different, right? I mean, and you have to be aware that what you do may have consequence on others that they don't particularly care for. For instance, yes, when we start to learn and grow, and we actually really do learn and grow, and we start to connect to our own moreness, and we start to exhibit that moreness, what happens to those who are still involved in the superiority paradigm comparative mindset? Suddenly they see you as, wow, you've been really learning and growing and working on yourself and applying self-improvement, etc. Wow, you're very different to who you are before. Wow, you got a lot going on now. You're a lot more. Well, in comparison, I'm not so good. I'm less. Yeah. And then people start feeling a bit diminished because you are more, because they're stuck in that foolishness of comparative mindset, superiority paradigm, hierarchy. So all of a sudden, your self-improvement is causing those around you to not feel good about themselves. Are you liable for that? Are you, Beena?
No.
You, Beena, live in a wonderful environment in which those around you are supportive of your moreness. And it has changed your family dynamic. Before, they didn't really listen to you. Now they do.
Yes.
Yes. It's a very big difference. I mean, they listen seriously when you say things which are out of the ordinary. Before, they were like, oh, Beena, what are you talking about now? Where do you come with this stuff, right? But now it's like they really listen, and they change as a result of what you share. But that's your family environment, which is a very magical, wonderful, beautiful Moreness environment. Yeah. And this is what Moreness-Culture is. It's a very good example of it. It is obviously not superiority paradigm. It's an alternative. There are many alternatives. Moreness-Culture is simply one of many. It is the alternative which we like. We've created. It's part of all of the writings, right? It's something that's been created. And this is a very potent thing, but Beena now in her family environment in this particular instance gives us an indication of what the difference is, right? So there's some more coming on TikTok. I'm just going to click say hi because too many of you for me to say hi individually, right? I don't mean to not mention you. I like to mention everybody, but it's too much, right? We'll be here all day. All right. So May 24, 1968. Yes. Oh, there where he says, I want to finish that quote, right? About it being liable, right? And once a person embarks on the road of knowledge, they're no longer liable for what may happen to those who come into contact with them. You should have paid him a visit when you knew enough to defend yourself, not from him, but from the power he has harnessed, which, by the way, is not his or anybody else's. Upon hearing that you were my friend, Vicente assumed that you knew how to protect yourself and then made you a gift. He apparently liked you and must have made you a great gift, and you chucked it. What a pity. Very devastating for poor Carlos, with his ego. To hear that he chucked it, he ruined the gift. This is going to really bother Carlos now. May 24, 1968. Would you like to read, Beena?
Yes.
All right, brilliant. I love it when Beena reads. Okay. Can you read? Is it big enough?
Yes, yes. I had been pestering Don Juan all day to tell me about Don. What is the pronunciation for that? Vicente?
Yeah, Vicente's gift. Yeah.
Vicente's. Okay. I had been pestering Don Juan all day to tell me about Vicente's gift. I had pointed out to him in various ways that he had to consider our differences. I said that what was self-explanatory for him might be totally incomprehensible for me. Very much so.
And that's a fair
point.
Yes?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, Beena. It's a fair point with Don Juan. Don Juan does somewhat fail to take into account the absolute vast difference between Carlos's worldview and mind view. It's somewhat incomprehensible to Don Juan almost that somebody can not see the of things. This is like just a complete but this does need to be taken care of. I mean, Carlos really almost, in the context of Don Juan's knowledge, Don Juan needs to treat him like a very young child, like a 2 or a 3-year-old at that age, because he's similarly clueless about the absolute obvious stuff, right? It's very important.
Yes.
Very important.
Okay. Might be totally incomprehensible for me. How many plants did he give you? He finally asked. I said 4, but I actually could not remember. Then Don Juan wanted to know exactly what had taken place after I left Don Vicente and before I stopped on the side of the road. But I could not. Sorry?
Vicente. Don Vicente.
Vicente. Okay. But I could not remember.
Pronounce it.
Yes, okay. But I could not remember either. The number of plants is important, and so is the order of events, he said. How can I tell you what his gift was if you don't remember what happened? I struggled unsuccessfully to visualize the sequence of events. If you would remember everything that happened, he said, I could at least tell you how you chucked your gift. Don Juan seemed to be very disturbed. He urged me impatiently to recollect, but my memory was almost a total blank. What do you think I did wrong, Don Juan? I said, just to continue the conversation. Everything. But I followed Don Vicente's instructions to the letter. So what? Don't you understand that to follow his instruction was meaningless. Why? Because those instructions were designed for someone who could see, not for an idiot
Good. Yeah,
who got out with
we
his.
are replacing. Sorry, Beena, we are replacing see with perceive because we don't want that misunderstanding of the visual association with the term.
Okay.
Don Juan later explains that
Yes.
it's everything and not just the visual. So we replace it with perceive so that we don't build that association. Part of Moreness culture is it's inherent in way of
Okay.
impeccability, which is
Yes.
to Moreness culture, this understanding of association management. So we're going to practice it here by saying
Okay.
perceive.
Okay.
Perceive.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Because those instructions were designed for someone who could perceive, not for an idiot who got out with his life just by sheer luck. You went to perceive Vicente without preparation. He liked you and gave you a gift. And that gift could easily have cost you your life. But why did he give me something so serious? If he is sorcerer, he should have known that I don't know anything. No, he couldn't have perceived that. You look as though you know, but you don't know how much really. I said I was sincerely convinced that I had never mispresented myself, at least not deliberately. I didn't mean that, he said. If you were putting on airs, Vicentes could have seen through you. Okay. This is something worse than putting on airs. When I perceive you, you look to me as if you know a great deal, and yet I myself know that you don't.
All right.
What do I
So
seem to
Beena,
know, Don
here's
Juan?
the problem, right? This issue that of when Don Juan perceives Carlos, he sees him as an energy being, right? Which is what perceiving means. Capital P perceiving means to see the essence of things, which means to see things in their raw energy, their basic energy format, right? And in that
Hmm.
energy format, you're seeing the intent because in that format, in that directness, you're seeing pure intent as energy, the energy of intent, energy, all connected. So you really see what things are all about. And when Don Juan perceives Carlos in that way, he looks like he knows what's going on, but he doesn't, right? He's
Hmm.
disconnected from that honest knowing. So he knows without knowing it. It's a very peculiar thing, right? But it's this
Hmm.
universe bringing things in this way um, because this is what enables Carlos to be in this world. Yes. Norma
Yes.
says the art of without adding or retranslating. Exactly, Norma. Everything we do in our regular normal world, we are always retranslating, filtering, putting things into our boxes, making it fit into our worldview because we think we know how things work, but of course we don't, right? So this is a very, very big point. All right, I think because this is a conversation, I'll read the Don Juan parts, right? And then you read the rest, yes?
Okay.
It's nice when we do it together like that, right?
Okay. What do I
Uh,
seem to know, Don Juan?
read that sentence again, it broke up.
What do I seem to know, Don Juan?
Secrets of power, of course, a brujo's knowledge. So when Vicente perceived you, he made you a gift and you acted towards it the way a dog acts towards food when his belly is full. A dog pisses on food when he doesn't want to eat anymore, so other dogs won't eat it. You did that on the gift. Now we'll never know what really took place. You have lost a great deal. What a waste.
He was quiet for some time. Then he shrugged his shoulders and smiled.
It's useless to complain. And yet it's so difficult not to. Gifts of power happen so rarely in one's life. They are unique and precious. Take me, for instance. Nobody has ever made me such a gift. There are few people, to my knowledge, who ever had one. To waste something so unique is a shame.
I see what you mean, Don Juan, I said. Is there anything I can do now to salvage the gift?
He laughed and oh, you must read that.
He laughed and repeated several times.
To salvage the gift. That sounds nice. I like that. Yet there isn't anything one can do to salvage your gift. Yeah.
May
All right.
25th,
So our
1960.
takeaway here is, yeah, we might not give gifts of power from a sorcerer or a brujo, but we do and can get gifts of power from the universe. Right? In language of conceptionality, which is the language of Moreness-Culture, capital G gifts are a term in our dictionaries of power, right? Gifts, capital G gifts, very good, gifts of power. And these happen fairly regularly in our lives. Yes, we get wonderful magical gifts. Beena is such a gift in my life. Yeah, that's
Wow.
why I invited her to come. Talking about this yesterday. Yes, Norma, such a gift. Yeah.
Yes.
When we pay attention and people come into your lives via attunement, yeah, there's always a moreness, there's always an anomalousness to things, and there's always some deeperness to it and a profoundness. And this is the power. Yeah. And when we recognize that and you act accordingly, you have a fantastic awesomeness. Yeah. The other point is, yeah, I said this to somebody who was receiving gifts of power, openings, possibilities, and they didn't act on them. Well, they were an addict, yes, and they always were an addict, and they found it very difficult to act uh, uh, in ways that the addiction didn't force them to act, right? To go against the addiction, as it were, and act in different ways to take gifts and opportunities. And I said this to them. I said, be aware that if you, well, to use Don Juan's term here, if you piss on a gift of power, there's no appropriate other word. I know it's a crude word here, but it's very appropriate. If you do that, this is the worst thing you can possibly ever do. Right? Why? Because in that indication, when you get a gift of power and you don't accept it, you aren't likely to get any more. In Carlos's case, there is, because he didn't do it out of ignorance. He was making the effort to do that. So it wasn't Carlos that was being inappropriate, because he did go and plant it and followed all the instructions. But Vicente was actually inappropriate here, right? So this is a unique instance. He can't salvage the gift necessarily, but it won't mean that he won't get the gifts, because he did try to do it, yeah? And because of the peculiarity, he is likely going to get further gifts. Maybe not in the exact same way, but further gifts. But I really want to emphasize that if you do not act on any of these gifts of power, you greatly reduce your chances. And also, especially when you're getting an opportunity to change your life and you don't take it, doesn't come again. And also, your life was going to likely be very hard after that, because the universe says, hey, yeah, I gave you this magical opportunity and you didn't take it. Well, now you're going to learn the hard way. Sorry. Yeah. So take this very seriously. I cannot emphasize enough how crucially important it is to take up those gifts of power. And this requires sometimes something on your behalf, yeah, some change, and that may be a lot in your life, yeah. You may have to do something fairly radical, but you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Absolutely have to do it, yeah. All right, please continue, Beena. They're on May 25.
Okay, there's something I just want to know, because the way Don Juan is reacting or responding towards that. Now, of course, he mentioned that, okay, I never get one. So some personal connectivity also. But this, as he mentioned before, that Carlos is completely new into these things. And the understanding of that the process of perceiving is not just one-fold, it's many-fold process. So you cannot just focus on one thing. You have to be very thorough about so many other things also. Like in this case, the sequence.
Correct. Correct.
Or maybe this is
Yeah.
something Don Juan is now making it more complicated because he never had this type of gift himself. So how would he know if Don Vicente choose him to send a gift, to share a gift with him, or something like that? Okay, then there must be something about Carlos. I mean, we need to take this thing
Yes.
in. Yes, but okay, no matter
Right.
how stupid he seemed, but there is some receptivity there which is so precious.
Yeah. Carlos is an anomaly. Carlos is an anomaly, as we define anomalies in Way of Impeccability under attunement, right?
Yes.
Anomalies are that communications from the universe. That's about the
Hmm.
easiest and simplest way to understand anomalies, right? Anomalies are the language of the universe. So anomalies are figurative and metaphorical communications. And Carlos is such an anomaly, which is why one of the reasons why he's an apprentice of Don Juan, because he is an anomaly. And part of Carlos's anomaly is that he appears to know but doesn't know. And we get this story of this gift because of this. We would not have it otherwise. Now, there's more to the story, as we're going to see. And this is very important, this moreness to the story, right? Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So please continue. Oh, we'll read again. Both of us will read. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. May 25th, 1968. Don Juan spent nearly all his time today showing me how to assemble trapping devices for small animals. We had been cutting and cleaning branches nearly all morning. There were many questions in my mind. I had to talk to him while we worked, but he had made a joke and said that of the two of us, only I could move my hands and my mouth at the same time. Wow, okay. We finally sat down to rest, and I blurted out a question. What's it like to perceive, Don Juan?
You have to learn to perceive in order to know that. I can't tell you.
Is it a secret I shouldn't know?
No, it's just that I can't describe it.
Why?
It wouldn't make sense to you.
Try me, Don Juan. Maybe it'll make sense to me.
No, you must do it yourself. Once you learn, you can perceive every single thing in the world in a different way.
And Don Juan, you don't see the world in the usual way anymore?
I see both ways. When I want to look at the world, I see it in the way you do. Then, when I want to perceive it, I look at it the way I know and I perceive it in a different way. Now, you see here in that sentence, just to jump in here real quick, Don Juan uses that see and perceive. Yeah.
Yes.
And like I said, that it really should be perceived, but it's a word that has history and it's come down through the lineage, and Don Juan doesn't update it, unfortunately, and he should really, and he kind of says so himself later on, right? Just habit that's making him use it that way. All right, please continue, Beena. Right there at the very.
Do things okay. Do things sorry. Okay. Do things look consistently the same every time you perceive them?
Things don't change. You change your way of looking. That's all.
I mean, don't want that if you perceive, for instance, the same tree, does it remain the same every time you see it?
You perceive it.
Okay. I thought
No,
that
it
this time
changes.
is saying see it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay.
he's meaning perceived there, but it's okay. It works either way. No, it
Okay.
changes, and yet it's the same. Well, think of
But
a
if
tree
this
is maybe not the ideal example here, right? To understand what Don Juan is saying, it's like people. whenever you look at a person, they're the same person, but yet they have changed, or at least we hope so, right? Well,
But if the same tree changes every time you perceive it, your perceiving may be a mere illusion.
and this is now, I want to emphasize this and comment on this, because this is a very big issue for Carlos. He's very concerned with his image. Yeah, he's still caught up in the superiority paradigm where image is all important, right? It's a massive, great big deal, image, yes? And he's very afraid of being perceived by others in the regular perceived, right? He's very concerned with how he look to others. And he's very worried about looking foolish, looking silly, looking deranged, looking crazy. Yeah. So that's why he says maybe mere illusion. It's completely distorting this concern of his, this worry. It's distorting his understanding. Yeah.
But okay, let's. So he laughed and did not answer for some time, but seemed to be thinking. Finally, he said,
Whenever you look at things, you don't perceive them. Just look at them, I suppose, to make sure that something is there. Since you're not concerned with perceiving, things look very much the same every time you look at them. When you learn to perceive, on the other hand, a thing is never the same every time you perceive it, and yet it is the same. I told you, for instance, that a person is like an egg. Every time I perceive the same person, I perceive an egg. Yet it is not the same egg, an energetic egg of luminous fibers, right? To
okay.
to make it clear here, it's not seeing an egg like a regular egg, right? It's an egg-shaped conglomeration of luminous fibers, right? It's egg-shaped, not an egg, right? So we again see, this is language of conceptionality, getting into the habit of being more accurate in our sharing. Yeah, because when we understand how easily things are misunderstood, like in this case, see an egg, no, a luminous egg-shaped luminous bundle conglomeration of fibers, and some of those fibers go out and touch the world. So there's a grouping of fibers, and then from that general grouping, they go out and connect to the world, right? That we are interconnected with everything all the time. Yeah. So important to keep this in mind, that when Don Juan talks about egg, that's what he means. See, now in our dictionary of power, we wouldn't put egg, we'd put luminous egg. Yes.
Yes.
To understand it. Then because we've got it as a term that uses regular wording but means more in our dictionary of power, we know what that extra is and we don't misassociate it. Very, very key. Yes, very, very key.
Yes. Yes. But you won't be able to recognize anything since nothing is the same. So what's the advantage of learning to perceive?
You can tell things apart. You can perceive them for what they really are.
Don't I say things as they really are?
No, your eyes have learned only to look. Take, for example, the three people you encountered, the three Mexicans. You have described them in detail. You even told me what clothes they wore. And that only proved to me that you didn't perceive them at all. If you were capable of perceiving, you would have known on the spot that they were not people. All right, now this is why this story is so important, because we are going to come to, again, terminology and somewhat inaccuracy of terminology, or sloppy, or not very accurate usage of terminology, which is why we have a dictionary of power. Yeah. Before we go to this point about not people, Joseph says, in the native medicine worldview, when the spirits give you a gift, which is often an ability, knowledge, you can choose to use it or not. If you choose to not use it, it is okay, but then it is okay, but it is seen by others as shame. Others are often a little wishful They never got those gifts, while the person who did doesn't choose to use them. However, if you reject the gift, it is lost. No way to change your mind later. Thus, some elders will lament that they had such gifts, but they didn't pursue or use them at the time. Oftentimes, we understand that rejecting such gifts is a wise decision if the person is not stable or disciplined and realize themselves. Often it would harm them. Their attitude reminds me of an Amy Winehouse lyric. I told you I was trouble, and you knew. I told you I was trouble. You knew I was no good. Yes, it is a shame and it is a waste. Of course, you can and sometimes should reject the gift, but that means you shouldn't have been asking for the gift in this place. Yeah. Because, or in the first place, you need to take care of yourself. Don't put yourself in a position where you might get gifts and you're not ready for them, which is what entire way of impeccability is all about, right? And just which is the essentials of good character. If you are living in such a way that you aren't able to take up that gift, where taking it up is going to cause you harm, well, that is a shame and it is a sad thing, because that means that you're living a life that wasn't able to take up a gift. So yeah, it's a great nuance point, Carlos, Joseph. It's a great nuance point, but it's very powerful. So yeah, put yourself in a position where should gifts come your way, you are able to grab them, utilize them, take full advantage of them. Because when of course, you always have a choice, and sometimes that choice is appropriate, but it doesn't mean it's ideal. It's appropriate, but not ideal. It's appropriate because you are broken and you need to fix yourself, right? To use more regular language. Yes, in Moreness-Culture, we never really think of broken and fixed, right? You're just on the path of learning, but you're in a bubble of unawareness, yeah. And as such, you taking that gift is going to cause you trouble. However, if you are aware enough to know that, then in that moment of accepting the gift, you can also choose and accept that I really, really have to change. And you can change in that moment. The gift can leverage you to be a different person from that moment on. Yeah. I've seen that
Yes.
happen too. Yes,
Yes.
this is very powerful. So on the one hand, yes, I can understand where it's appropriate not to choose it, but at the same token, it's also inappropriate, right? Yes, for people who are in a situation where that gift could cause them problems, if they stay the same, then obviously choose the gift and change at the same time. See, that's the way to deal with it.
Yes.
Very powerful. Thank you, Joseph. That's very cool. That's very cool. Very cool. Yes. We have to realize that if we know that we aren't what we need to be, knowing it, accepting I'm broken, I'm flawed, I'm no good, whatever. Yeah, I was troubled. That's just an excuse. It's a cop out. To acknowledge it doesn't make it okay. No, you still got to change. Yeah, and I see this is very popular in music, in popular songs, popular culture. To well, just accept me as I am. Well, the serial killer could say the same thing. Oh, just accept me as I am. No, I do not accept you as you are. Sorry. Yeah, no, it's people
Yes,
trying to
we are
make
under
not
no obligation
okay.
to have.
We are
So I was just
exactly.
adding that
Yep.
we are not in any obligation to accept other people's nonsense and inappropriate behavior.
Exactly, exactly. And we think we are, because their nonsense is it's fairly petty and trivial. Yeah. But like I said, if that same attitude, that same mindset, that same belief system is employed by the serial killer or thieves, then there is very great detriment to accepting them. Yeah. And now, what about people who are stealing your energy, for instance? Yeah,
Hmm.
think about that. Yeah, is that not
Yes.
serious? And And how many of your friends do this? Yeah, they attacks on your energy. TAX.
Yes.
Yeah, they tax your energy. They suck it. Yeah, they energy vampires because of their indulgence, their nonsense, and that's not cool. No, and yeah, you saying this whole thing. Oh, just accept me as I am. Blah blah. Right? They want to keep excusing their nonsense. Why? Because it's of benefit to them, but not at the expense of everyone else. No, not cool, not cool. And I don't excuse it. I don't accept it. And sorry, if you're going to be perpetually doing this, you're going to not have me as a friend for very long. Yeah. I mean, if you are making an effort to learn, ever slowly, I'll stick with you, no problem. But if you just, I'm just fine as I am, accept me as I am, flaws and all, I don't care to change. Sorry, I got no time for that. No, 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 no. I mean, we have to be ruthless, positive ruthlessness when it comes to such things, because otherwise we just get dragged down. Yeah, not cool, not cool. I love this point. Please continue, Beena.
Yes. Don't I see things as they really are? No, your eyes have learned only to look. Take, for example, the three people you encountered, the three Mexicans. You have described them in detail, and even told me what clothes they wore. And that only proved to me that you didn't perceive them at all. If you were capable of perceiving, you would have known on the spot that they were not people. They were not people? Sorry, I was reading Don Juan's
Ah,
also, sorry.
that's
They
all
were
right.
not people?
I'll,
What were they?
they were not people. That's all.
But that's impossible. They were just like you and me.
Now, again, let's look at this again from this alternate perspective, right? Bubbles.
Yes.
Carlos is absolutely insisting that he knows how the world works. But Moreness-Culture is this quote that I repeat very regularly. The world does not work the way we think it does. And Carlos is not yet aware of this. I mean, he is actually, because he's had enough experience with Don Juan already, but he's not updating. Yeah, that's Carlos's big flaw, but it's our gift, and this inability of Carlos to update makes for the entire book series where Don Juan has to explain things again and then again and in another way and in another way and another way, because Carlos doesn't get things and he sticks to his worldview. Yeah, it's a magical gift because otherwise we wouldn't have all of this, right? And this thing that oh, but that's impossible, says Carlos, and Don Juan says no, they were not. I'm sure of it.
I asked him if they were ghosts, spirits, or the souls of dead people. His reply was that he did not know what ghosts, spirits, and souls were. I translated for him the Webster's New World Dictionary definition of the word ghosts, the supposed disembodied spirit of a dead person, conceived of as appearing to the living as a pale, shadowy apparition. And then the definition of a spirit, a supernatural being, especially one thought of as a ghost or as inhabiting a certain region, being of a certain good or evil character. He said they could perhaps be called spirits, although the definition I had read was not quite adequate to describe them. Are they guardians of some sort? I asked.
No, they don't guard anything.
Are they overseers? Are they watching over us?
They are forces, neither good nor bad. Just forces that a Brujo learns to harness.
Are they the allies, Don Juan?
Yes, they are the allies of a man of knowledge. And here is what I was saying earlier on. Right? Remember when we first encountered allies, the allies were particularly the little smoke, Mito, and Datura inoxa or devil's weed, right? Those were the quality that was in that. It wasn't a being, it wasn't a spirit, it was just the I guess the quality of that was inherent in those, that something that could be used by someone to get actual value, right? And that was an ally, the smoke and the plant in this case, right? And now we have a completely different understanding of ally, of the word allies, right? A very, very different term. And to me, I think in my love of accuracy and as part of our dictionary of power, I feel it's essential to make the distinction here. Yes, they are all generally allies, but these are a different type of allies. So to say they are allies, it's accurate, but also inaccurate, because there wasn't a distinction that in the first part that though the power plants were a type of ally. See, if Don Juan had said that, then when we get here, oh, this is another type of ally. But he said those are allies, which by common understanding of language defines ally, yeah, but not right. So when we understand the power plants, right, and not all of them, because mescalito is also coming from peyote, which is a power plant, but mescalito is not an ally. Mescalito is a guardian and a teacher, by Don Juan's understanding. So there's a very, very profound difference here. It's very important to be aware of this. Yes? Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Very important. All right.
Yes.
Where are we?
Okay. They don't guard. Yes, they are the allies of America. This was the first time in 8 years of our association that Don Juan had come close to defining an ally. I must have asked him to do so dozens of times. He usually disregarded my questions, saying that I knew what an ally was and that it was stupid to voice what I already knew. Don Juan's direct statement about the nature of an ally was novelty, and I was compelled to probe him. You told me the allies were in the plants, I said, in the Jimson weed and in the mushrooms.
I never told you that.
He said with great conviction.
You always jump to your own conclusions.
But I wrote it down in my notes, Don Juan.
You may write whatever you want, but don't tell me I said that.
I reminded him that he had at first told me his benefactor's ally was the Jimson weed and his own ally was the little smoke, and that he had later clarified it by saying that the ally was contained in each plant.
Yeah. No, that's not correct, he said, frowning. My ally is the little smoke, but that doesn't mean that my ally is in the smoking mixture or in the mushrooms or in the pipe. They all have to be put together to get me to the ally. And that ally I call little smoke for reasons of my own. So this is important here, right? To understand that ally is an abstract term which means something which is of beneficial usage that benefits us, that we can use, right? That is the overall abstract general understanding of ally here. And Joseph says, allies are entities that help you. Yes, but not only entities, because the little smoke is not an entity, right? It's just a little smoke. That's it. It's not an entity. It's a something, not an entity as we would normally associate an entity. And because an entity is something that, by definition, has its own volition. The smoke doesn't. I mean, you might as well say the entity is kind of like complex machinery or a tool, yeah, like my power drill. It doesn't have its own volition, yet it's very powerful. Yeah? Now it's a bit more complex, of course, than a tool, but it's on the same scale. It's not an entity of itself. So something that's not an entity can also be an ally. It's about usefulness. Yes. So anything that you can use that provides usefulness and value is an ally. Yeah? Norma says, agree, Joseph. Always wise to question, but without previously choosing an already acceptable answer. And Joseph says, question mark. Please elaborate, in other words, Norma. And while Norma elaborates, we will continue to say, yeah. Right? Where Don Juan says, no, that's not correct. My ally is the little smoke. But that doesn't mean that my ally is in the smoking mixture, yeah? Or in the mushrooms, or in my pipe. They all have to be put together to get me to the ally. Right? So the ally is an abstract something, yes?
Yes.
And that ally I call little smoke for reasons of my own. Just a name. It doesn't matter. It's an abstract something that is of value and beneficial that Don Juan can use. Yes? I mean, if that thing wasn't usable by Don Juan, it wouldn't really be an ally. Or it could be usable, but usable with great difficulty, like you have to force it. And then it wouldn't be an ally either. Yes? You might still be able to get
Yes.
use out of it, but if you have to force it and make an effort, it's not with you. An ally, by definition, something that is allied to you, is something that has a positivity towards you, whether it's volitional or not, right? It doesn't matter, right? So this is very important. All right, please continue.
Don Juan said that the three people I had seen, whom he called those who are not people, were in reality Don Vicente's allies. I reminded him that he had
Ah,
established that the difference between an ally and Mescalito was that an ally could not be seen, while one could easily see Mescalito. We involved
right.
ourselves in a long discussion there.
Sorry. Again, let's
Yes,
understand Don Juan's thinking. Yes. When he
yes.
was talking about the allies there, he was talking specifically about Yumito and uh, Datura Inoxia, the devil's weed, right? Or Jimson weed. And in those
Mm.
cases, the ally could not be seen. He didn't make the distinction between specifying that he was talking about those specific allies and allies in general, the abstract understanding of allies. So Carlos gets a bit confused, and rightly so. It's important when we are talking about things to be aware and to be clear when we are being specific and precise, and when we are speaking in the abstract, in the overall, which is again the power of the language of conceptionality. Because when we are utilizing this in general, we are defaulting to making the general overall understanding. And from there, we go to the specific, which is much easier. Because otherwise, if you do it the other way around, like in this case, Carlos confuses the overall with the specific because it's not distinguished. Yeah. If Don Juan had determined an ally and then said these are a specific instance of an ally, right? We understand broadly what an ally is, and this is a particular variation. Then when Don Juan had said ally were the people, Don Carlos would know, well, they're not similar to the other ones, so this is a different variation of the overall concept of ally. Yeah. See how language of conceptionality, it trains our brains to think differently. And that's very, very important, right? So good example of the capital concept. Yes. Allies in the Native American community are non-native people that assist the native community, not in decision making, but in carrying out the decision of leaving. Capital A allies, in my humble opinion, entities that help you. Any entity that help you. Yes, but also there are allies, at least in Don Juan's world, that aren't entities that help you, right? So yes, in general, those are entities. Allies are generally entities, but they can also include something that can be of benefit, like the smoke, the little smoke, right? It's not an entity. in the normal understanding of an entity. I suppose we could broaden our definition to say entity doesn't have to have volition. It's just something that has kind of a moreness involved in it, right? And like the little smoke, right? It's not a conscious entity, but it's an entity in the sense that it has complexity to it. Yeah. All right. That works. That works. We can go with that. So if it depends on how you define entity. All right. If entity is very broadly defined, no problem. No problem. Right. All right. This is very cool. This is very cool. But again, see, language. Language affects perception. It affects comprehension. It affects our interaction with the world. Language is very, very vital. Yes. Very, very, very vital. Very big deal. Very big deal. Yeah. We're going to
Yes.
leave it here for today, Beena?
Yes. Yes. Because now it's
Okay.
time, and
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
are getting, because it is getting very interesting, because understanding
Yeah.
about how one can perceive is very tricky. And Carlos, I can understand his struggle also. Also, that the way Don Juan is responding, I feel a bit
Yeah.
of like some personal connectivity to that, and some assumptions from Don Juan's side, because
Correct.
how he assumed that Carlos will understand, as Carlos was assuming that this is how the things and the world works. Don Juan was assuming that he had, because he came via attunement, then he must be aware. Assumptions.
Correct. 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 So this is a very big point here, a massive point that has come to Beena. And this is the uh, mythologizing or uh, uh, to see Don Juan uh, not only as this extra moreness. Don Juan is an extraordinary person. But just because Don Juan is extraordinary doesn't mean that we need to accept every single thing that Don Juan says without question. Absolutely not. And Don Juan will be the first one to say this. Yeah. So here we have the application of Moreness-Culture, specifically via ADU, awareness, discernment, and understanding. We need to be aware, right, that we cannot just accept everything that comes from anywhere, no matter who it is. Yes. I mean, again, I've said this many times. Look up foolish quotes by famous people that generally say sensible things, but occasionally they say absolutely ridiculous things. Yeah. So we have to be aware that just because somebody is generally very sensible, very wise, very sober, doesn't mean that they can't be mistaken. And this is capital R receptivity, right? Then we get discernment to be able to see and understand that, figure it out, and put it into some way and shape and form, and where we now are processing it to get to capital U understanding. And of course, then we apply it. Yes. And very, very, very important. Very, very important understanding, right? So that we don't fall into the trap that people do. Oh, Don Juan is wonderful, and he is. Don Juan is ridiculously wonderful. But that doesn't mean that Don Juan doesn't get things a bit wrong sometimes. Not as in completely flawed, but not where Don Juan couldn't be more accurate, for instance, or Don Juan couldn't elucidate better, communicate better. Yeah, absolutely. Now, how much of this is Don Juan's actual communication? We don't know. We are forced to rely on Carlos's interpretation, yes, of that. So it may be that Carlos just never heard Don Juan make those comments, because this is what happens when you've got a filter on. You literally do not hear some things, right? So we don't know, but we have to take what's given to us, yes? And we have to say, fine, how Carlos heard this and make these adjustments, right? In the case with allies, because it is a very profound understanding, yes? And to understand that this abstract concept of allies is very important. Now, going forward, this understanding of ally, it shifts from the power plants to basically, in further conversation, when Don Juan says ally, he's going to mean non-ordinary people, and he's going to refer to them later on as inorganic beings. Okay? And so ally becomes very much synonymous with inorganic beings. Even though it's a broader term, it gets typically used to describe the inorganic beings, yeah, and not so much the power plants. So very, very, very powerful. And specifically, he says inorganic beings, which there's also a point where spirit comes into it, a spirit out in the wild, right? And Don Juan makes a spirit caller. And he's very clear that a spirit is not an inorganic being. A spirit is a part of this world, our regular world, where inorganic beings are not. Okay? So very exciting stuff coming up. Don Juan shares with us a worldview that is much broader than our worldview. Yeah? This is very potent stuff. Very, very potent. And again, when we understand perspective shifting, doesn't mean we necessarily have to be engaged in that world. We just need to be aware that there is more to the world than what we know. That's really the key takeaway. Yeah, we don't necessarily have to get immersed in it. Yes, Beena?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
All right, we'll leave it there for today.
This is very interesting. Thank you so much, everyone. Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, everyone, especially Syl, because just to read Don Juan, as far as I understand that how influential his sharing was overall, okay, for the spiritual world, and then those spiritual movements, and of course the life change and everything. Seeing S, small s, seeing and perceiving him, and on doing the capital R reading, it's an opportunity, because it unhooks you from any expectation that, okay, yes, the person is, this is the real actual application of capital T trust, where you understand things and then you give margin for all those things, and then still you extract the value. It doesn't in any way reduce the value or Don Juan's stature in any way, but it gives us the leverage to extract value and choose wisely. Don't just fall into that because it is coming from Don Juan, then it has to make sense. No, it has to make sense in normal common sense way. You have to check it, be thorough about it, thinking it through to the end, and question those things, and then accept if you like to, of course, and then build your own perception on that. This is what we are doing, and this is the real appreciation. This is real giving due respect is. This is impeccability is for other people. I truly admire, of course, those people who shared a lot of moreness, like Don Juan, and of course Carlos also, and now Syl, okay, and of course Joseph and Norma and everyone who are, okay, everyone is sharing moreness, at least in my circle, I feel that, and I'm so appreciative of all these things. This is what capital R receptivity is for. This is what we are actually exercising. This is the real application of the philosophy of Way of Impeccability. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And if you are here, and if you were here, please do click like, subscribe to this channel, hit a notification bell if you want more value in your life, because by doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm to give more substance like this. And we have to be very thorough. And nowadays, we have to be very, very thorough about where we are focusing our attention.
Oh, 1 second, Beena. Joseph says,
yes.
On a side note, you asked me if the segment on Beena's coming to this world was instructive, comma. We're waiting for the rest. Yes, we're keen to hear. We're keen to hear, Joseph. We're keen to hear. So we're waiting.
Say it again, sir.
Joseph makes a comment there, right? He says,
yes.
Joseph, on a side note, you asked me if this segment on Beena's coming to this world was instructive, comma. Then I was waiting for the next comment, right? I would say it was instructive, but not capital I instructive. Yes, because it is instructive in a sense of knowing how it happened for Beena. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is something that can happen for everybody. Yeah. the capital I instructive part was what we were talking about earlier. Something came to Beena as an opportunity, as a gift, as an opening, as a door opening, yeah. And Beena grabbed that and took that, right? And that's the same way as when you get a gift in a vision quest, for instance, yes, like you were referring to earlier. It doesn't matter how the gift comes. What is instructive is Beena's grabbing of that gift, actualizing it, utilizing it, changing her life to be able to do that. That's the capital I instructive part. The specifics of how it happened for Beena, those that don't replicate to somebody else necessarily, right? In some way we have this, yes, but not exactly the same. So we have to, as part of Moreness-Culture, Joseph, we have to extract the capital I instruction. Yeah, the story itself is this. You asked specifically how Beena came, and that's what Sophie and the Philosopher is. But when we look at Sophie and the Philosopher as an abstract story, it is about the sophistication of receptivity.
Yes.
That is capital I instructive. Yes.
Yes.
That's the key part there. That Beena came into a situation, or anybody who comes into a situation like we are with Don Juan. Yes, we need to do the same as Sophie and apply capital R receptivity to say, I love what Don Juan says, but I'm not going to be influenced by Don Juan.
Yes.
Because otherwise you could adopt this vagueness of language usage, which Don Juan sometimes uses, yeah? For instance,
yes.
Yeah? You could follow his example, yeah? And not cool. But when you capital R receptive, and you say, oh, okay, I have to expand this understanding of the term ally, which Carlos struggles with. Yes, and rightly so. Now, again, Don Juan may have said it, but we have to take Carlos's understanding, right? So it's not how Don Juan actually was, but how Carlos perceives him. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
When you think of it in this term, right, Joseph, is capital R receptivity, is that capital I instructive? The concept of capital R receptivity.
Okay, if I'm understanding it correctly, they are, of course, the situation. The universe was already making the ground, the scenario for all these things to happen, and I was prompting on that. I heard someone was saying, sharing a few days ago, maybe a couple of days ago, that what is luck and who is lucky. Lucky is a person, or luck is in itself is when you are prepared for the opportunity. The opportunities are always there. But if you are prepared or not to grab it, to really, really grab it, this is what luck is. So yes, the universe was already preparing the ground. I had to quit my passion first, that it was, of course, not meant for me. And some people work like an angel in my life, and they pushed me out of that because I was insisting on that. So that was a disappointment, but also that was a clue, a very big hint. I was not getting it at the time as a hint. I was just like, okay, some karma or something bad, I was stupid and all sort of things. But that was a hint. It was a sign from the universe, which was saying that, okay, this was not meant for you. This is something, no, you should not, because you will regret later. And I had to switch. It was forced by the universe and the circumstances for me that I had to get out of that situation. And after that, the first encounter was the word consciousness. I had no idea what they are talking about, but I heard that word consciousness. That was again a very big sign that, Beena, this is the way you have to develop this. You have to go in this way. I was not getting it, but I was following that. I was prompting on those things. If I'm not understanding something, I need to understand. That is something very simple for me. If I'm not understanding something and something is coming in my way, I need to put some effort to understand it. And I did a lot of effort. I put a lot of effort to that. And then something else happened in my life. So the universe was preparing the stage for that. I was not aware of the whole scheme because, of course, my vision was very local. I could not see and understand or perceive the abstract view of that. at how in the bigger scheme, every nonsense thing is making sense. For me, everything was just collapsing. Everything was not working. Everything was nonsense in my life. But the only thing was that whatever the situation is coming, I was trying without being aware of the idea and the concept of way of impeccability or impeccability itself. I was trying to be impeccable. And that is the key. This is the actual preparation, that this is how you respond to universe. At least this is what I understand now. That when things are happening, have capital T, trust in universe's intent, that something bigger is happening out there which I cannot see right now.
Yeah.
And universe is not against me. Universe is not against to anyone. We sometimes don't get the bigger picture. And I was not getting the bigger picture, but I was prompting that. I was having some trust. Okay, yes, if it is coming, I need to understand. I need to put some effort in to understand that. And this is how this whole story builds. And this is how I came to. So the abstract concept of me coming to this world was universe actually pulled me out of my chosen world and put me in a situation where I had no idea. I had no idea. My language was different. My expression was different. My understanding was different. Everything was different. I was in a completely alien world. But I made it my own. I just made it my own. That unknown, that complete alien thing, that complete situation, I just made it my own. So this is the abstract value of it. I don't know that, okay, maybe I'm not understanding your question right, but this is how this whole thing happened. It was happening for like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I was isolated for 2 years, completely isolated in my house. And I was just trying to get some sort of idea of that what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And it was the preparation time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
So thank you
Joseph,
so much.
I like this
Yes.
explanation, Beena. Well done. So this is a key point, Joseph, when it comes to instructiveness. Instructiveness is a function of receptivity. And receptivity is a function of our worldview. If we are stuck on believing that the way we see the world is the way it is, maybe with some little bit of, all right, I don't know exactly, but mostly it blocks us, it limits us. But when we include in our worldview to say, you know, there's a lot in the world that I have no clue about. And when I encounter it, I have to shift my understanding. I have to shift my perception. I have to explore and create new ways of perceiving. I don't have it available to me when that comes. I have to create it. I have to learn it. I have to figure it out by trial and error, etc. Right? So I have to do a lot in order to be able to perceive. I have to change. I have to add. Right? This is Moreness-Culture. I have to acquire the ability to perceive. Acquire. Yeah? We assume that we are able to perceive whatever's out there, but this is a mistake. And that's why so many things come our way and they aren't instructive when they could be. But that's because we don't have the ability to perceive it, because we're stuck in perceiving through the lens, the filter of our particular worldview. Yeah. So there are other worldviews, and this is why this particular book is called A Separate Reality. Right. And it is through the juxtaposition of understanding there's one reality and another that we can get an overview perspective, which is what Way of Impeccability and Moreness-Culture is all about, and Language-Of-Conceptionality. It is having that overview perception and ability that allows us to perceive the individual different worlds. Yeah? Because we have that ability through abstract conceptionality to see the similarities that allow us to see the difference. It sounds like a contradiction, yeah? But the abstract is to see what's similar. And yes, I see the same ally, but this ally is different to that ally. What makes them the same? And through seeing both the similarity, we can see, okay, we're similar, and I see the similarity, and then what's left, the difference is the uniqueness. Yeah? See? So you're seeing the similarities and the differences, but first you need to be able to see one to see the other. Right? So there's a lot here involved. So capital R, receptivity, which is the key point of why Sophie is Sophie the Sophisticated. Yeah, it is that receptivity which made Beena open to taking this opportunity. And of course, it's also a story about intent and the materialization of that intent. Yes. And then
Yes.
also, like I said, acting on the materialization of that intent. Beena had an intent to have this. Now that intent could have been, I don't remember the specifics, or I'm not, that the intent could have been to get an offer, not necessarily to act on the offer. Yeah. So
my my intent was at that time that, wow, what
yeah,
if I could have these, like, okay, this exciting thing that someone, what if I could be that lucky that someone could choose me like this and
right,
start giving me
right,
lessons on something,
right. But
because
when you
learning is my passion.
offer, Beena, that was
Yes.
you being happy. That doesn't, then your intent was materialized at that point. See?
Yes, but I
Acting
had
on
to
it is
prepare
a step.
myself. Exactly. People cannot, because a universe always say yes. This is my understanding. When you have some clarity of intent, and when you have something which is, of course, not in contradiction with universe's big intent,
Yeah,
then everything you say, universe always say yes to that, and you get some opportunity. But the problem is that we are not ready,
correct.
and because we are not ready, we are not in position to take action, prompt actions to that, and that's the problem. I was, yes, my intent was exciting, fun thing, but I was prepared for that, because
Yeah,
universe already took all the other distractions from my life, and I was focusing on learning and growing, even though I had no idea. I was not precise in my vocabulary, in my conceptions, but
yes,
on abstract level, I was doing that. I was trying to learn and grow and trying to understand how the world makes sense.
yes, yes.
So I was
And
ready
that's
for
a
that. The
very,
problem is
very,
that,
very big deal.
yes,
Very, very big deal. That preparing ourselves to be able to to take an opportunity when it comes our way, to accept that gift of power. This is what Way-Of-Impeccability is all about. And Moreness-Culture in the whole is about living with those gifts, utilizing them, yes, and extracting them, connecting to them, being receptive to it. So Joseph says stories of power. Yes, exactly. This
yes,
the whole
exactly.
Sophie and the philosopher story is a story of power on both sides,
Yes.
not just for Sophie, but also for the philosopher.
Oh, yes.
Because because that the philosopher came into Sophie's life, yes, but he didn't have to make that offer. That was the
Exactly.
recognition of the power.
Yes.
See, and then the philosopher made that opening, which is extending an opportunity. The gift for the philosopher is the acceptance of that gift,
Yes.
right? So even
Yes.
though it's a gift for Sophie, it's also a gift for the philosopher, because in the acceptance, the philosopher gains this incredible bonus, this incredible moreness. Yeah. It's not a one-way story, and this is very important to understand. Philosopher and Sophie are two different people. They are not the same. They are not equal. Yes, and in Moreness-Culture, there is no equality. There's an understanding that we are all gloriously different. And it is that glorious difference, which is the gift, that allows for their fantastic relationship. If they were
Yes.
equal, it wouldn't be that relationship. Correct, Beena?
Yes. Absolutely. And we are still not, of course.
And it'll never be. You're always going to be this more marvelous
Exactly.
difference. The difference
Exactly.
will change. The difference will change. But there's
Yes.
always going to be this incredible difference. And that's what is the magic, is the celebration of difference. This is what Moreness-Culture is all about. Not hierarchy. We don't care who knows more, who knows less, whatever. It's irrelevant. The value lies in the fact that there is difference. And when we accept this, we stop trying to inadvertently compete, because that just wastes our time. When we're inadvertently trying to compete, we're saying, look, I'm equal to you. I'm the same. I'm okay. Yeah, it's just
Okay.
Come on.
This
Oh,
this is
I'm
something very interesting, Syl. This is something very interesting because
yes, Joseph. Yes.
if you compete with your friends, which means that you were not making appropriate choices when you were making friends. If you have to compete with them, because for me, I always choose my friends who are, in my understanding, they are more than me. Okay, so there is no competition. My friends
Correct.
are more than me. They have moreness, such an amazing moreness. So I love them. So there is no competition. And
No.
if you are in there are two people only, two characters in which you can be in competition with, your friends and your enemies. I don't have any enemies, alhamdulillah. Okay, so that's the first thing. But even if you are in contradiction with someone, if you are in competition, any sort of competition with them, which means that again, you were not making appropriate choices. It's my responsibility where I'm going to engage myself. If I'm engaging myself in just nonsense competitions and rivalry and all sort of nonsense, it's my responsibility. I was not being impeccable. I'm not being responsible enough to make appropriate choices in my life. Yes, circumstances do happen. Some people do come in your life. I had some situation, but the moment I understand and realize that no, this is not worth of my time and energy, and it is not my responsibility to try to fix that situation and that person, I disconnected immediately. Because I have, of course, I need to be very scrupulous about my energy also. So I'm very, very thorough about where I'm going to invest my energy. That's the only thing which makes sense to me. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Joseph.
One
You
more.
make this whole thing very, very interesting. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. The gift that keeps giving, says Joseph. But I want to make a point here, just to elaborate on what you're saying, or to do a repeat back really of what you were saying. Let's take Carlos and Don Juan. From an ordinary comparative mindset hierarchy point of view, Don Juan is everything, and Carlos is the nincompoop, the fool.
Yes.
And Carlos is the apprentice, and Don Juan the teacher. But
Yes.
see, this to me is poor. That's why I don't like these terms. Why? Because in this definition, that description of this entirety, yes, because it's not looking at overview perspective. It presumes and assumes and implies that Carlos is the one learning and not Don Juan. Man, this is so inaccurate. Don Juan is always learning because of Carlos. Does he learn directly from Carlos, like Carlos says here is something to learn from? Sometimes, yes. Like in the case of the definitions, right, of spirit and ghost. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So Don Juan is learning there, something that was not in his general thinking, right?
Yes.
New. But what does Don Juan really learn all the time, every single time he interacts with Carlos? He's learning how to interact with a psychology like Carlos's. He's learning how to communicate more effectively, more fluidly, right, and more succinctly, and communicate in a way that Carlos understands. This is an incredible gift. Yeah, the gift of being able to refine and enhance your expression, your understanding, your awareness. You need to grow in order to communicate more appropriately. Yeah. Yeah. In native belief, we honor and respect sacred fools. They are most excellent teachers. Yes, exactly. And this is actually a fairly universal thing, by the way, Joseph. Right? I mean, the fool in European culture, in court culture, right? Yeah, the king and all his advisors, and part of that was the fool, the royal fool. You know, like in King Lear, the characters very well established there, right? And yes, and Coyote being a good example. In Southern African native cultures, Tokolosh, right? Or Pan in Greek mythology, same character. Or Kokopelli, sorry, Kokopelli, Pan, Tokolosh, all the same character. Yeah. So yeah, there's much of this. It's a fairly universal thing, which is quite interesting, and not all cultures, or many cultures see, especially people who are a bit off, or uh, you know handicapped, mentally handicapped, etc. They venerate them or treat them specially because there's much to learn from this. Yes, it's up to us, right? It's not in the thing itself. So learning isn't necessarily that something that comes directly. When we understand that we can learn from anything and everything, it changes everything, right? And the ability, like in this case for Don Juan, Carlos is an incredible gift. Carlos is an incredible gift. Yeah. And I do believe he does share this at some point, unless I'm just picking it up as an overview thing, but I think he specifically does mention this. Yeah. 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 Not so much in modern American dominant culture today. American dominant culture is somewhat of an anomaly. Yeah. Because it's a very new and a very young culture, right? I mean, American culture, when you put cultures worldwide, American culture is not even a teenager yet. Yeah. So American culture is a gross anomaly because yes, it has a little bit of carryover, but it's made itself into a thing. Yeah. And in this trying to establish its identity and rejecting all of the history that is involved, it's made the culture somewhat a bit empty, yes, as it is now. Yeah. And of course, also American culture is very Hollywood dominated. Yeah. Which again, what is most of our entertainment? It's relatively shallow, right? Yes, we are starting to get a bit more depth coming into entertainment, but look at what we're sharing in terms of Moreness culture. There's massive depth all the time. Do you see this in Hollywood or TV series? No, no, right? It's a sad thing, and even when they do try, like a very well-known actor did a voice reading of the first three books, and then it just faded out, right? It collapsed. So it threw the babies out in the bathwater. Exactly, exactly. So yes, American culture is a very peculiar thing, but it's also very powerful when we look at it from a universal perspective, because American culture via Hollywood, right, and TV and movies, etc., everything that comes from there. I'm just using Hollywood as the uh, a term for it, right? And an encapsulation. This culture that, because of entertainment getting exported worldwide, it has a great effect all around the world. But from externally, right? And this is very important. Americans, you need to realize that the way you perceive yourselves is not the way everybody else perceives you. And in other countries, American culture is used as a counterpoint, as an example of not, which has strengthened local cultures. Yeah. Because those cultures were fading a little bit also, just in the modern age, because we're very busy and a lot of stuff to distract us. But then those cultures are saying, hey, we don't want to go this American way and end up to be kind of hollow and not have any real actual culture. Yeah. Have a superficial culture. So it's a big deal. So it's helping the rest of the world to say. And of course, in America, there is a big movement to try and connect to a Moreness culture, particularly, and I write about this in the Council of the Gods, when you get to conqueror guilt, right? It's a thing, right? When you look at conquerors, they feel guilty for conquering. At least the people do, not necessarily the BMNs that actually do this. Yeah. With the actual ordinary good people, they look around and say, well, I'm here now because of this conquering, and I feel guilty because, shame the poor people that were here before. What did they do to deserve this? Nothing. So conquer guilt is a very real thing. And what do people do in order to assuage, to alleviate, to minimize that conquer guilt? They adopt the philosophy and culture of the conquered. And you see Native American spirituality. You see how this has become a thing. It's a big deal. it's very highly regarded. It's very precious in the spirituality movement. Yeah. So there's exactly historical trauma. There's a magic to things. Yes. So American culture, you could say, includes now general mainstream American culture, includes Native American culture as its spiritual component. Yeah. It's a magical thing. It's a magical thing. So this is the Moreness coming. It's still going to take some while for it to really start to, become assimilated fully. It's still somewhat separate. Yeah. But it's still early days. We need to look at things over the course of millennia, right? Or centuries. Then we start to get a different perspective of things. Anyway, that's what the whole Council of the Gods, it's a very long-term story about precisely this. How the overall understanding is, when we look at history from a broad overview perspective, we start to see that many things which we believe to be great evils actually have a moreness to them. Yes, there is evil involved, but there's also a moreness involved. And they make sense in that moreness perspective. Yes, much like it makes sense to take a very bitter medicine. Safi, anyone? But when we understand that there's a greater sense to taking that bitter medicine, yeah, then we look at history in a different way. We have many examples
Yes.
of bitter medicine in history. It changes our
Yes.
worldview. It changes our worldview. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Good
so much,
culture
everyone.
versus not good cultural appropriation. Exactly, exactly. The negative cultural appropriation is just BS. It's just pretense. It's people being false. It's lying. It's deception, right? But good cultural appropriation is saying, "Wow, this is valuable, and I want to use this," and you use it. Yeah, you're not saying about it, and there's no actual usage. It's just BS, right? So the one thing is you actually change utilizing something that is valuable. That's appropriate. If we don't have this ability, then we're always limited to what we know only. Yeah. But to me, this is world culture. Yeah? In Moreness culture, anything that is valuable gets added into Moreness culture. That's it. If it makes sense, that's good. It's wonderful. You were going to say, Beena?
No, I was just saying that, okay, we were wrapping up at
Yeah.
11 and now we are at 38. So it is good. It is good and it is fun. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much who are going to watch us recorded. If by chance you are going to watch this recorded, which we know that, okay, we some people do watch us recorded because we have views on that. So please do put some effort to make a deliberate choice by clicking like, or if you don't like even, you can make a comment and say that, okay, no, it doesn't make sense to me. And of course, you can always ask questions, which are the love notes from the universe for us. We consider
Yeah.
questions as the love notes from the universe because it provides us
That
an
gives some
opportunity to
power.
learn and grow, in that specific way. That's why this is love note from the universe. Anyway, please do put some effort, make some deliberate choices, because where you are going to focus your attention is going to grow more in your life. If
Yeah.
you want to just have randomness in your life, do scroll random. Okay, no problem. But if you want focused and precise and appropriate things and value in your life, to make deliberate choices. Thank you so much,
All right.
everyone, for joining us. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.